Hey guys, welcome back to Lying Serpent Media, and today we're going to be covering an article by Jewish Telegraphic Agency, and this has to do with Representative Rashida Tlaib and how her comments about the Jewish Holocaust was distorted. And the article reads as follows. The title is, "What did Rashida Tlaib say about the Holocaust? It's probably not what you think." And it says, Republican lawmaker like Representative Lee Zeldin were criticized deservedly for distorting Rep. Rashida Tlaib's comments about the Holocaust by suggesting she said that she gets a calming feeling when she thinks about the genocide. If you read or listen to the Michigan Democrats' comments, it is crystal clear that she said no such thing. The Republican pile-on, joined by President Donald Trump, is a further weaponization of anti-Semitism, this time based on a comment that the target never made. But it's not just Republicans who appear to distort Tlaib's now notorious remarks. It was the ostensibly nonpartisan Jewish commentariat in media as well, in which I will include our own site, the Jewish Telegraphic Agency, and take full responsibility. Our headline on Monday read, "Rashida Tlaib says her Palestinian ancestors made a safe haven for Jews after Holocaust." We quoted the remarks she gave to the podcast Skullduggery, in which Tlaib asserted that she gets a calming feeling when she considers that Palestinians created a safe haven for Jews during the Holocaust. That was the take amplified around the Jewish world in the Israeli press, in which historians of the era pointedly refuted for her purported version of history. They noted that far from welcoming Jewish refugees during the Nazi era, the Palestinian leadership actively worked against their immigration to British-controlled Palestine and collaborated with the Nazis in their war against the Allies. Rashida Tlaib is either completely ignorant of the history or is a deliberate liar. Benny Morris, the Israeli historian, told Harwitz, Palestinians did nothing to alleviate the suffering of the Jews at Nazi hands. Rather the opposite. The Arabs of British Mandatory Palestine during the whole period and supported by the neighboring Arab states, did all they could to prevent Jews trying to escape Nazi hands from reaching the relatively safe shores of Palestine. That is an important assertion of the historical record, and one made repeatedly in the press and on Twitter in the wake of her remarks. But it assumes that Tlaib was crediting Palestinians with welcoming refugees and creating a safe haven for Jews, when the transcript of her remarks suggests she was saying something else. Here are the relevant quotes, which I transcribed from the video. And I'm not going to read what the interviewer says. I'm going to get straight to Tlaib's comment. She says, "Absolutely. Let me tell you. I mean, for me, I think 2 weeks ago, we celebrated or took a moment, I think, in our country to remember the Holocaust. And there's a kind of a calming feeling. I always tell folks, when I think of the Holocaust and the tragedy of the Holocaust and the fact that it was my ancestors, Palestinians, who lost their land, and some lost their lives, their livelihood, their human dignity, their existence in many ways had been wiped out, and some people's passports. I mean, just all of it was in the name of trying to create a safe haven for Jews, post the Holocaust, post the tragedy and the horrific persecution of Jews across the world at that time. And I love the fact that it was my ancestors that provided that. Right. In many ways, but they did it in a way that took their human dignity away. Right, and it was forced on them. Tlaib does not assert that Palestinians welcomed Jews or worked in any way to create the safe haven. Instead, she says, using the passive voice, that Palestinians were displaced in the name of trying to create a safe haven for Jews. In fact, it was forced on them, that is, the Palestinians. And despite the cost of her people and property and dignity, she goes on. She loves the fact that something good came of it, a safe haven for Jews who were suffering horrific persecution around the world. She does say that it was her ancestors that provided that, but provided is different than created, and Tlaib qualifies provided with, in many ways, hardly an assertion of open arms, and immediately says that they did it. Presumably, Jews created the haven in a way that took their human dignity, that is, the Palestinians' dignity. Okay, I'm not going to read the whole article. I think I got to the meat of it, and the part that I would like to discuss, in which Rashida Tlaib is basically stating some truths of history that is not known in the mainstream media. The only thing we know is that this Jewish state came about in 1948, but it never talks about how and why in the manufactured crisis. But I'm going to read some statements from some Zionists that back up Rashida Tlaib's statement. These things have been hidden from history. The lying serpent media, they're very crafty and good at brainwashing and keeping people ignorant. But I'm going to reveal these statements by Jews themselves that basically state and support everything that Tlaib has said. How these pogroms that they've created in persecuting their own people to help bring about this Jewish state, because once it was created, they had no people. The Jews did not want to go there, so they had to create a situation to make them want a state of their own. And this is where I'm going to end it with this article and pick up with the statements in another book where it is heavily documented. Okay, guys, now I'm going to read you the statements that support Rashida Tlaib's comments that her people was displaced, property gone, passports gone. Okay, I'm not going to read every statement that I have, but just to give some credence, some proof to what she was saying, and just to let you know that these people that's over this Jewish community were the ones behind most of their heartache, their pain, all this running that they did from place to place, trying to get away from persecution. I'm gonna let you hear these statements that validate those points. And I've read these statements before in other videos, and just to reiterate what I was saying in those previous videos, I'm going to read, I'm just going to leave it to 2 because I don't want this video to be long and drawn out. Now this statement is from, now this was made 15 years in advance, and just to show you how manufactured crises take place and these things are orchestrated behind the scenes, just listen to this statement. This is by Max Nordau, and he is making this statement in a letter, and this is what he says. Let me tell you the following words as if I were showing you the rungs of a ladder leading upward and upward. Herzl, the World Zionist Congress, the English-Uganda Proposition, the Future World War, the Peace Conference, where with the help of England, a free and Jewish Palestine will be created. Now listen to what Herzl says. Theodor Herzl, who is an Ashkenazi Jew, states this in his diary. It is essential that the sufferings of Jews become worse. This will assist in the realization of our plans. I have an excellent idea. I shall induce the anti-Semites to liquidate the Jews' wealth. The anti-Semites will assist us thereby, and that they will strengthen the persecution and oppression of the Jews. The anti-Semites shall be our friends. Now, this was way back in 1897. And in 1895, Edmund James de Rothschild, the youngest son of Jacob James Mayer Rothschild, visits Palestine to see the Jewish colonies he funded as a result of the Rothschilds' engineered pogroms in Russia, Poland, Bulgaria, and Romania. He is impressed and vows to continue to supply funds to these colonies in furtherance of the long-term Rothschild objective of creating a Rothschild-owned Jewish state. There was one more. Oh yeah, listen to this arrogant statement that this man makes. Speaking of Edmund Rothschild, they were trying to tell him to stop meddling and just let things be. Okay, he says, he sends a delegation. The Jews from the colonies set up in Palestine by Edmund de Rothschild sent a delegation to him, which states the following. If you wish to save the Yishuv, that means the Jewish settlement, first take your hands from it, and for once permit the colonists to have the possibility of correcting for themselves what needs correcting. And this is his response. I created the Yishuv, I alone. Therefore no men, neither colonists nor organizations, have the right to interfere in my plans. You see, people, these things were planned way in advance by that famous family. But yet they will have you to believe that all these people, with what they're saying, including Farrakhan, that they are just mean and hateful. But what people fail to mention is that just like in every community of people, just like within the black community, we have bad apples. You know, we have people that just mindlessly shoot up, terrorize, and kill their own people. Within the Jewish community, you have these Zionists, which they have a lot of money. So the evil that they do is kind of spread all over the world. They can, you know, create and manufacture wars to bring about certain results that they want, you know. But the difference is, every time someone tries to bring up the truth of certain bad apples within this Jewish community, they try to shut you down and call you an anti-Semite, or that you're promoting anti-Semitism, or you're speaking anti-Semitic rhetoric. And eventually the truth will spread and it will take hold and people will see it for themselves. You know, they have had a stronghold for a long time. And, you know, another thing that they use to try to shut you down is by saying that they own the media. But it's true. I mean, if you just go and do a Google search and look at who owns all these media websites, these news stations, I mean, you would see it for yourself. But that's how I'm going to end it, folks. We got to continue to combat these lies. You know, every time that serpent try to rear his head, you know, we need to interject truth within the atmosphere to let people see that there is another side to the story. And until next time, continue to read and do your due diligence.